Shelley, welcome to the podcast.
Chris, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me. I'm very excited to have you on. I have been in love with your restaurant since the moment I stepped foot through the door. I lived in Texas for 10 years as a sales rep. This podcast is about me. Sorry.
Good.
So I worked in Texas for 10 years. I worked at Glazers and then Southern Glazers after the merger for 3 years. I did a Glazers product expert course and we covered Southern Italy. And I was like, I get Southern. I know Southern Italy, right? And so one of my big things that I did when Bianca and I first met was we went to dinner at Spencer's in Palm Springs. And she was like, I don't know, you order the wine. And I ordered Salice Salentino, right? Because I was like, this is good wine. It's easy. It's not too expensive. Like, this is like my first real date, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
And it was great. And then the second night we hung out, we drank Aglianico. And
I like this.
the first time I walked through your restaurant, I said like, oh, it specializes in Southern Italian. I wonder if she'll have Aglianico on the menu. And you had 3 by the glass. And I was like, whoa, this is so cool. You know, being from Galveston, Texas, and then coming to San Francisco, it's not even just like walking into just a cool like Italian list. I mean, you really have kind of the paramount Southern Italian program, I think, in San Francisco, maybe Northern California, maybe I don't know. I mean, I can't think of other places that have kind of dedicated as much time and effort to their program as you have. So I'm honored to have you here.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here. And it's fun because we work with wine together and it's definitely our lifestyle. And along with that is so many connected friends, food, wine, passions, hospitality, but also, it's when I hear so many fun stories about Aglianico, and for us, it's a place we went over 20 years ago, and it goes so well with our food and wine and culture, and we're able to deep dive in it, and rather than we chose this path because there's so much wine not only in Italy but the world, so having a point of view is so important, and we really cared about what we were doing, and we were hoping people would love it.
I think, you were so far ahead of the trend. I mean, I know that there's restaurants that focused on, Roman cuisine and wine from the surrounding area. But, now you look around and there's, Moroccan restaurants that focus on Moroccan wine. And there's all these different restaurants that have found wine or beverage that are specifically tied to that culture and are focusing on that. And there's probably always been places like that. But I mean, when I moved to San Francisco almost 7 years ago now, is it 7 years? I think it's 7. I remember just really like looking at your list, and I looked through and I was like, there's nothing I could think of that's not on here, right? I mean, you checked every box, and it was cool too. Another thing that I really appreciate is that every time I go in, the staff is incredibly professional. They're all very happy. They seem very happy to be there. And having managed restaurants, I know that's hard to do.
I just left there and I already missed them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can really feel that. It feels like a family. And I mean, most of those guys I've seen in there since I've been going there. And I'm sure they've been there for even longer.
We still have this conversation that hasn't ended over there too. Yeah. I'll be like, hold that thought. I'll be back tomorrow. You gotta see it. Okay.
That's perfect.
Yep.
And then I guess, it's been 20 years now at A16, San Francisco.
I can't believe it.
Wow.
A lot's happened, but it seems like we're still working on so many things that we were starting when we first opened. And it's been basically my professional career has been focused on the south of Italy. And I feel so lucky because I'm also local, and part of not knowing the beauty of what was south of Rome, because a lot of times, especially when we were starting to study for the Court of Master Sommeliers or take our exams or work in restaurants, I worked in French fine dining for most of the 90s. And when I first took my sommelier exam, but we have a wonderful concentrated group of sommeliers in the area. And when I went this direction, it kind of just happened organically. I had never had Neapolitan pizza. We went to Naples to have it. That's my first Neapolitan pizza was in Napoli.
Wow.
And of course, it was before Eat, Pray, Love came out, but you had to go to Don Michele. And then now they have outposts here. So,
Wow.
and we have a great wine director who's a friend you can go and experience Neapolitan pizza. Like we didn't grow up having it, but my kids are teenagers now. That's what they grew up with.
That's cool.
And pizza's very personal. So we fell in love with this style and the culture and the history and the origin story. And then wine came after too. So it was all just, if you go to Italy, it's about food, wine, the experience, the culture, the history, traditions. And it really matched with our belief and love of restaurants too.
I love that. That's beautifully said. One of the things that you touched on, you were discussing kind of your career before A16. You mentioned French fine dine. I mean, I really only know of your story at A16. Where were you working at before? Where did wine kind of come into your life? How did you find wine, and how did wine find you? Was it you were studying for the court prior to going to Naples?
No, I didn't know you could be a sommelier for a career.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that many. I could count on one hand, and they're pretty big players. Larry Stone, Rubicon hadn't opened yet when it was just about to open, and Michael Bonaccorsi was at Massa's back then. We had Evan Goldstein and Peter Granoff, Square One. I mean, Joyce is turning 89 in 2 days. Her great niece is dining at A16 right now from Chicago, and so cool. And I know it's just a wonderful world of incredible people that we get to interact with all the time, and that's really a big part of hospitality.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I guess one of the other questions that I have is, how challenging was it at the beginning to kind of find such a breadth of wines? I mean, how much work have you done with these wineries to kind of help them get distribution? I mean, I imagine
I'm still doing that
back then.
now.
Yeah.
I mean, since COVID, distribution has changed tons.
Sure.
And I forget, and we've also been, everyone's kind of getting their center back, their focus, like what direction is hospitality going in, and also it's back too. It feels good. It's lovely to go out and meet new people, experience someone's vision on their restaurant, travel, and culturally, food and wine is paramount to traveling and your experience. I mean, I think, but of course, weather, maybe beaches and things, you can put that in there too.
Sure,
But then what wine are you going to have with it? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. What are you going to drink on the beach?
Yeah. I mean, this is it was a really important year. One of my mentors, a few of my mentors actually are chefs. In the 90s, when I was kind of growing up in hospitality, I had started at a young age working because I'm from a big family, and I was, a dishwasher, a busser, a host, server, worked my way up. I had, really looked up to how servers interacted with their tables and recommended things, and really it's almost like a dance and choreographed beautifully. And then I opened the First Left Bank in 1993 in Larkspur with Roland Passot, who is still a dear friend and someone I just admire so much in every way. He's the heart and soul of hospitality. He loves wine. He's extremely talented. And then one of his dearest friends was one of my main mentors. So I went to Fleur de Lis and worked for Hubert Keller and Maurice Rujas and Chantal for about over 7 years. Oh. And I just went to Hubert's 70th birthday. And of course, like most 70-year-olds, he was throwing a party from 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. and DJing, and it was a disco theme. So Lila, who is Mater D, and she was one of the my counterparts and friends. There was like just a few girls, and we had to change in like sort of like this broom closet, and then like away from like the Frenchies and everybody, who we all laugh and have so much. We had so much fun, and fine dining then was different than it is today.
Yeah.
But I feel so lucky to have had such mentors. I mean, Fleur de Lis was open for 40 plus years, and then when I went to cooking school at Sainte Marie, Hubert came to my cooking school graduation, and it was like, we were doing Julia Child's cookbook, and we had to do our aspic and food presentation. And it's like Hubert came to that. And, when he had his party, I was like, Chef, I am coming to your party. That. So we flew back the same day, but we showed up, and one of my other mentors, Julian Serrano, was there, and he just announced, congratulations on Spain winning, Julian.
Yep.
If you're watching, no, I'm kidding. I'll send you a note.
Yeah.
But he is just an incredible human person, but somebody who these were like larger than life mentors that had someone in their young 20s was able to work with on a floor where there wasn't that many women working in fine dining in San Francisco at the time. And I learned a lot from them, and probably their training, how they were trained, and then taught another generation and another generation how to cook, how they presented their food, and the level of service we're going to give. So it was invaluable to me, and I take that. And then after cooking school, I taught there for 13 years at Sainte Marie.
Wow.
And I've been able to continue. I decided to take my path on Italian wine, and now I have been asked to certify sommeliers on Italian wine every once in a while, but I feel like I'm just living it. So it's like any opportunity we can sit and have a conversation about food and wine, well, we should do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I mean, that's the whole impetus for the podcast is kind of the same thing, right? It's like, I'm in sales now, but I miss the hospitality side, right? And then, I've never worked retail, but I love to talk about retail and try to understand it. I mean, the more that I can understand the beverage industry and the food industry as a whole, I mean, the more appreciative I feel for it. And if we're not able to have conversations about it, then it just makes it harder, I think. And that's the hope, is that we'll have people listen and think like, I should appreciate wine. I should appreciate food more. Eating out doesn't just turn into eating out and getting a bite of food. It turns into kind of like really putting some intention behind where you're going. Are you supporting family owned and operated? Are you just getting, Chili's or whatever? Chili's is fine, obviously, if that's what you're looking for. But, maybe thinking every now and then of like, how do I support somebody's vision that can then eventually support my vision, right? It's kind of like this ecosystem.
Yeah, I think that especially here we are in the heart of summer, and there's just so much fresh, great food, like real food. And one of the things about living where we live is the food, the farms, the access to really high quality ingredients.
Incredible produce.
And, a lot of people, when, this past year doing travel for the book and getting to see lots of friends, and there's like parties hosted and things, and it's been really great to get out and about a little bit. But the first question everyone's asked is like, how's San Francisco? And I'm like, well, my freshman in high school is busing all over the city with all of his friends, and I didn't teach him how to ride the bus. All of his friends did, and I like the friends they're making, and what they're always thinking about eating. And one day he's like, maybe I want to be a sommelier, but he doesn't drink wine yet. But it's just it's a different world.
Yeah,
it's smaller, it's faster, it's a lot of unknowns out there. It seems,
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, that's good to hear that kind of the next generation that's coming is interested in it and appreciates it. It's kind of it feels weird. I mean, since the pandemic and since people have been working from home, I feel like there's a little less kind of desire to go out and eat. And even if there is, it doesn't feel like it's as much of an experience anymore. It's just kind of an exchange, right? I pay money, you feed me, I go home kind of thing.
Yeah, we have a lot of work to do in the hospitality world to get the excitement about the experience.
Right.
Like today was a great day. It was beautiful weather. So I was in Rockridge and San Francisco A16s, and I was leaving Rockridge sort of like mid-evening, and I saw friends that I was on the board of La Cocina with, or here and there, and they're walking in. It's just like awesome to see people, and I'm so grateful that they're bringing their friends in and having food and wine, because we have we want it to look effortless and fun to run a restaurant, but a lot of people rely on us, and it's not lost every day that it's a new day. You need to be thinking about what's happening in the restaurant today. Is it a large party? Is it sailing competitions and things? But kind of understanding what's happening around you and aware, because it's definitely like a lot of people are like, the restaurant business is so hard, and I'm like, when you love it, it doesn't feel hard. But there is a ton of responsibility in so many categories. All the boxes are checked. But I, here we are 20 years later talking about the 20 years.
Yeah.
So.
That was going to be one of the questions that I asked, I feel like you exude hospitality so much, and I feel like it kind of your staff does too. And whether that's because of their time there, or it's because maybe you've attracted people that just naturally have that. I was going to ask, even though you have so much kind of hospitality, just kind of aura, how do you find, are some days harder than others? And how do you find kind of the motivation to get up and again go in to like make somebody's day, make these guests experience so special? I mean, where does that come from?
Well, I think that we all need to operate in the same care and dedication for the guests. And like, we want people to feel like we care about them, they're welcome, and we're prepared for them to enter. We have a lot of employees now, and it's everyone has their own personalities, and I love that. And like, from day one, it's like, I might say something this way, and another person might say something. We're saying the same thing, but they're completely different ways of saying it, and that is fine. As long as why Sydney say peppers, where they come from, or things like that. It's okay, but it's like saying, how are you to somebody? Right. How's your day going? Not knowing what the response will be, right. But check, thanking them for coming. How are you everyone has different days. Some days are great days and some days are more challenging, but the checking in on a person is really important, and getting in the mindset and hospitality is like, it's almost like an athletic competition, not competition, but performance, where you're like, okay, or even we are about to begin the night. So you want everyone to be watching out for each other and working as one team throughout the night. And it's not always easy to get everyone on that path, but we're so much better. And we can do such a better job when we're operating on as a team. Because restaurants are not one person.
Certainly not. No.
There's a whole lot of us that rely on each other to get the jobs done that we all need to come in and do and have the same equal importance. It's way more fun that way too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everything has to really fire on all cylinders to kind of function. But I really liked how you kind of compared it to kind of an athletic practice. I mean, it's something that in the beginning of the Reluctant Somm, I was doing like blind tastings online. I need to do more of them, but I always say it's like getting your reps in. The more you do it, the easier it gets,
Yeah.
and the more kind of like fluid it becomes. And it doesn't mean that you're always going to get 100%, especially not on blinds, right? But it doesn't mean that every day is going to go perfectly well. Even world champions lose sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like, but you don't get that good by not practicing, and you don't get that good by not having the experience.
You learn from mistakes. You have to. It's a lot of humbling things about working in the industry we have, and you're literally like something might be completely on fire behind you, and you're like, "Welcome, how are you? Please sit down."
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's, but it works out. That's my motto.
I love
So
that.
like, we'll figure this out. Good.
One of the things you also mentioned earlier that I wanted to kind of ask this story. So we're lucky enough to represent Bonnie Doon Winery. And I remember seeing on Instagram a while back that you guys were doing a whole fava bean pop-up. Not sponsored by, but the favas came from Mr. Randall Graham.
Yes, they did.
And I was curious because, it just pops up, and obviously, like, I don't think Randall doesn't owe me anything. I don't think I met him once at our 50th anniversary, but I'm always like, how did that conversation happen? Where was I? Like, how, and so I was so excited to come in and try that. But I mean, how does that work? We've talked about Randall on the podcast before with Will Henry from Lumen Wines.
Oh my God. Yeah.
He convinced Will to plant Ruque in his vineyards down in Santa Barbara, Santa Maria Valley area.
Bless him.
Yeah,
And
and so he kind of says it's just Randall just kind of calls. Is that how it happened with you? Just goes,
Yes.
Shelley, I've got favas. You want them?
Yep, that's exactly what
I
happened.
love that.
I'm so happy you thought of me, but again, it's like this is community. So today, for example, my like lovely, super amazing good friend Maria Sinsky texts me, and she's like, "I need an 8-pound mortadella," and I'm like, "Got you." And I'm like texting. I'm like, I love that I'm texting, being like, "Hey, ciao, Marco. We need a 8-pound, mortadella."
Yeah.
It was the same with Randall, and I am like, this is what I mean by community. It's like we know and love one another, and this is the world we get to live in, where things are important. And so Randall being an amazing focus visionary on farming, grapes, planting, and like just lived his life. This has a bon vivant that is like focused on all the right things. And he is just, there's only one Randall Graham. And so he emailed me and he said, "I have a terrible problem." He's like, "A horrible problem." And I said, "Oh, okay." And he's like, because there's so much rain this year, so everything has gone berserk. And he is like, "I have so many fava beans, I don't know what to do with them." And I'm like, "Okay." So we're having a Sagra della Fava, and the kitchen loves me right now because we're going to be peeling favas all night long for weeks right now. But it was actually, fava bean it was pretty much finishing, but not for Randall. And his where he was situated and where his farm is, and San Juan Bautista is, it's just paradise, honestly. And he literally picked favas with his team, put them in burlap sacks, and burlap sack after burlap sack of favas arrived. And I literally was like, I could sleep like a pillow in this like fava sack.
funny.
And then, so we kept, as the week went through, we started with all these sacks of favas, and then we're peeling and peeling and peeling them. And we got my kids in there, and by the time the week was ending, we literally were on their last one.
Yeah.
And you sometimes can't plan things like that, but when the occasion arises, you're like, we're here.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. And we wanted to share them with everybody. So we had favas in everything.
Yeah.
We had a whole menu, but we also we have such a love for them, and we know the culture of Italy is just like, you can do fava pecorino, you can roast them with chilies, eat them with the pod, put them in your pastas, we had them literally, we had a bowl, and we even fried them. We had them raw, we had them everywhere.
That's so funny.
It was super fun, and you don't even know if you can repeat anything like that. But then he also had a wine from the estate, and I don't want to butcher the name, Popolacum. It's yes, that's where so we were pouring wines and just having a great time. But I wish I talked to Randall all the time. But just to think that we've been friends, and when you're friends and time passes and things like this come up, and you share in weeks, and we were super grateful, and we're able to promote that and offer such a healthy, nutritious focus on something that's also very Italian and very good for vineyards. You find them all over the vineyards, and all over California too, but in Italy, it's definitely spring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
good nitrogen fixers, right, for the soil.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
The one of the other things that I wanted to talk to you about, while we're getting kind of into the discussion of winemaking and farming, is I wanted to see if you could elaborate a bit more for me on the new label of yours, Tansy. Is this a brick and mortar winery? Is it a private label? And then what's kind of the impetus behind it? Or
we're having a soft opening next week in downtown Napa. So Sam from Mom and Pop and Po Wines has had a tasting room, pre-COVID and part of COVID, that became her Mom and Pop office, which is a brilliant brand she put together, and she'll put 500 pounds of grapefruits, and it's her spritz product. And she invited Kitty and I, who it was a pandemic project that we started because of the state of restaurants, basically,
right,
and friendship. And Kitty coming to A16, and then meeting Megan Glab, who is so amazing and has her love of Italian grapes with us, and a friend for many years, sommelier turned winemaker with her husband Ryan at Rhyme. And so Kitty moved from the city to Napa in COVID, and her kids go to school with Sam's kids, and she invited us to come join it. We said okay. So A16 is going to do a little pesto bar and small bites.
Awesome.
But it's going to be a spritz and wine bar. And so I think that's be a nice fit in Napa. It's right by Cadet and Keplinger and Tree, and right by where Maria Sinski is going to be opening too, and downtown Napa. It's not a big space, but it's big enough, and it's going to be super cute and open, I think, Thursday through Sunday.
I love that.
And so you can do an experience flights, walk in, have a spritz, have Tansy Wines is Kitty Osseline and myself, and we and Megan Glab has been so important and integral to everything, because we share this deep philosophy of love for grapes, but also her style of winemaking, and what we love. It's all sustainable and on the lower alcohol side of, for the most part. I would say we did do a Cabernet, but still it's 14%. It's being released in a couple months from Glass Rock Vineyard, right by where Kitty lives. And Megan doesn't even really make Cabernet, but this one, we're so excited to release that one. But mostly it's Italian grapes in Northern California,
Right.
single vineyard. We have a Fiano from Russian River, Bolin Vineyard. We have a Falanghina. This last vintage was Rancho Coda. This year, the name's changed. Sam Bilbro's been working with this project, managing it, and the grapes the vineyard's gorgeous. There's a lot of beautiful Italian varietals planted. We did the Falanghina from there, a Pinot from Mendocino in Signal Ridge, a Vermentino from Las Brisas Vineyard. That is right there in Carneros. And we're doing a line that's like a screw cap line that's really approachable, and we think it's important to have an everyday wine.
Yeah.
And no, I mean, most of these are geared that way too, because we want wine to be enjoyed, people to have it, love it, and so we have a Pinot Grigio, a rosé from Alianico grapes in a Herringer and Yolo County, and a field blend, a red field blend that has a little bit of Rouquet that really comes through.
There we go.
And the aromatics, speaking of Randall Graham. And so, it's our fourth vintage, and it's a very exciting time right now because this became an opportunity, and it's with friends. And that's kind of like, I think one of the things we learned in COVID too is we want to work with people we love and have fun, and wine is definitely like a life work for me, a lifestyle, and it's been really, really great. I mean, we still have lots to work on and do, but it's we're really happy with working with the team we're working with and where it's heading. So,
do you think that, are the vineyard sites that you're sourcing from vineyards that you were already familiar with, or did you have to track some stuff down, or?
We had to, this is a hats off to Megan, because everything's organic.
Right.
Farming's very important to us. And, there's a group of friends, and I think we'll see a lot more Italian grapes planted in California. We know that's already happening.
Some good heat-tolerant varieties, yeah.
Yeah, no, 2 weeks ago, we were at the Festival of Forgotten Grapes in LA. It was the first one.
I didn't even know this was a thing.
No, it happened.
That's awesome.
It was so much fun because I saw, like, for instance, Steve Clifton, he's been doing Italian grapes in California, and he's at Vega down in near Santa Barbara, and his Vermentino was amazing, and he has, he's one of the few winemakers who can tackle Nebbiolo and Sangiovese. Those are tough ones in California.
Yeah.
I feel like you really got to understand the grapes to do those. And I saw Jill and Steve Mathiasen recently at A16, and we had their Scapatino. Megan and Ryan just got a Frappato, and just the direction of Italian grapes in California is very exciting, and it makes sense with the Mediterranean climate we have, with so many different grapes that can be planted. And there's a lot of cool people making great wines. So
it's kind of a callback too, because there was so many Italian grapes way back when.
Calatal, it was a thing. I went to those, and our first list at A16, all the California wines were Italian.
Wow.
But I really did my homework on this, and I remember finding Vino Noceto in El Dorado Hills being like, this is the best Sangiovese I had found at the time, and I was really trying to find them, and it was a big quest over 20 years ago for everything Southern Italian. Our first list wasn't going to be focused on Southern Italy because I didn't know we could get the grapes,
right? Yeah,
or the wines, and then and sometimes I'd be looking at a wine book, but because it's Italy, it doesn't really tell you what's in the wine. whether it's like, oh, Santati Terra Brune, what is it? And like even the rep who I was working with, who a friend of mine at the time knew so much about wine. She said, I don't know, like let's try one,
Yeah.
or let's you know, you don't always. It was a big discovery time, so still is, honestly.
I'm sure. I mean, it feels like I feel like Italian grapes are limitless at this point. I mean, I just started a little
There's so many.
minute and a half reel series, and I'm doing like under the radar grapes or grape mini series, and I was just like pulling bottles out of my samples and stuff, and I was like, they're all Italian, like, but yeah, I think the first time that I really heard that Italian grapes were a big deal, aside from a lot of Italian immigrants being in California originally, was Marjoram's Amaro. So he makes an
That's
Amaro
so cool.
based off of 100%
He's so great.
Sangiovese.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, why did he plant Sangiovese? And then the portfolio manager goes, well, Sangiovese used to be everywhere, and everybody just ripped it out except him. And now he just blends it all together. It's like a 13 or 14-year Solera at this point. And all the herbs and botanicals come out of his garden. And they say that, like, when
That's
you
really cool.
empty the tank, it's just like sludge in the bottom from all the sediment. But that, and then, getting to work with Giornata as much as I have,
He was at the Festival of Forgotten
Oh,
Grapes.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, working with those wines has also given me a lot more respect, I think, for Italian wines
They're
grown
so
in
great.
California.
And he got in the restaurant business. He told me, he's like, Shelley, now I'm in the restaurant business too. And I'm like, I'm in the wine business too.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
got like,
that's funny.
Yeah. I
Flip
know.
flop.
Yeah. Look at us.
Yeah, I had maybe, I'm not sure. Have you had any Texas Italian grapes yet?
I need to get down there and taste them. I will be at Texom.
Oh, okay.
And,
Here you go.
I love
Yeah.
the Texom. But I don't really. I usually go into Dallas, and
Yeah.
I do have a sister in Texarkana.
There we go.
Outside of Shreveport,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so she comes out. She tries to drive out and stuff, but.
Yeah, when I lived there, I mean, that was the first domestic Vermentino and first domestic Sangiovese I ever had were Dukeman family vineyards and Texas Hill Country AVA. And I remember tasting them and being like, wow, these are pretty good. So, but that's 10 years ago now, so I'm curious what it's like now. I just keep hearing better and better things. Tempranillo seems to do well there.
I can see that.
Warm weather varieties seem to do well there, which seems to be kind of what's trending here also. So then, aside from the winery and aside from A16 SF, you had also mentioned A16 Rockridge. You've also opened an A16 in the Ferry Building, and you also have an A16. Is it Tokyo? Mm-hmm. How?
15 years.
How do you do this?
No, like I said, we're a team, and we have. It's and also it just seems like we're still figuring it all out, and then, but we've learned a few things along the way, and then in Japan, they the way it's structured for businesses there is so different than America, but somehow it worked out. They approached us, and we are now. I'm going to Tokyo in September for the 15th anniversary, and then Yokohama is 9 years old now, I think.
There's two in Japan.
Yeah.
Wow, I had no idea.
They were just visiting us. We were just up at Continuum, and I took them to, all our like local faves, and because when they come here, they don't want to eat Japanese food, even
Right.
though we have a growing number of great Japanese restaurants. But
Yeah, I'm curious too. It's got to be even more challenging to get the number of wines that you have here. There, do you help?
So different.
Do you help them there, or are
Yeah.
they kind of focusing like half California, half Southern Italian?
we work closely with them, and it's been a really great partnership over the years. Because, like for instance, here we get a bunch of basil. There you get each leaf is wrapped, so you have to unwrap all the leaves, and then, just the ability of their idea of like for instance, they have fish markets. So if we were gonna get an octopus here, you would get it and prepare it, and would slow cook or however you make it. there. I remember like one year a sous chef, like, he was like, oh yeah, I know, like an octopus will, it's sections were like
Oh.
getting on him, and it, we're not completely trained in that way.
Right.
And so there was like sometimes some cultural things. For wine, it's like, imagine, it's just the same thing as the basil, but in wine. So it's not like, hey, I'll do a 3 case by the glass. Because there's really hard, storage can be an issue, not everywhere, but it gets really warm there. And
Sure.
in cultures where, in like climates and things where you're working in challenging places for wine, you have to be a little bit careful. And so you order what really works for inventory, storage,
Yeah.
and things. But yeah,
That makes sense.
little by little. So you can get deliveries on a micro way there.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Is there, without going too far down the rabbit hole, is there kind of is similar structure where you're ordering through a distributor, or are they ordering through? Okay.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's changing there as well. It used to be that there was like certain places where, okay, so our partners are with the parent company is the Odakiyu train company. That's very traditional, historic in Japan, and they have a restaurant division called Jiro, and that's our partner. So they have 150 restaurants.
Wow.
And also, they have a direct import of the Alois wines.
Wow.
Who's coming next week.
Wow.
Who's one of our great friends. Yeah, so they wear like Alois aprons because of the textile manufacturing they have there too. We would love to get those aprons. I'll remind.
Yeah,
I'll just mention it to Massimo.
I'll take one. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, no, that's part of this whole like circle of friends that with A16, and like it's really fun. But yeah, it just kind of worked out that way, and so now we've been. I guess we're having 15 years there, so we were only 5 years in when we opened there.
That's incredible. It's, here now we're seeing it. You go to J-Town, and Over the Bridge has this. The more popularized thing now is kind of the fusion between Japanese food and Italian food that I'm seeing. But it's crazy to think that like 15 years ago, a company said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go to San Francisco.
Yeah.
We're going to find this really awesome Italian restaurant. We're going to have another version of it here. It probably took a lot of forward thinking. Maybe not. Yeah, maybe I'm not giving them the credit they deserve.
Well, I see Italian and Japanese. I see the beauty of tradition, but also it's all about ingredients, and that makes sense for us here too, where it's balancing the few things together. It looks more simple than it actually is. So when it works and you get it right, that's what it's about, so it's not like in food, it's not like more is more. It's like just the right amount, balance in there for all the flavors that you want to get. But yeah, so it makes sense, like the use of seaweed or the use of however. Italy is mostly coastal, and there's like a few regions that are landlocked, but there's the love of seafood, and Japan's an island, so they're just like this common understanding of how good spaghetti and clams is. And like when there was an earthquake or something happened, they were emailing at me from A16 in Tokyo, like, are you okay if we put spaghetti on the menu? Because it's comfort food for Japanese.
Yeah.
And because they're, such a noodle pasta culture.
Sure.
And we're like, absolutely, that would be great. That's just like something they crave. And it's like our mashed potatoes kind of,
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, yeah.
That's awesome. And then, and to add, another layer into your life, we have this amazing book. Is this a second book?
Third.
Third.
With Kate.
Where can I find the
co-author.
other two? Because I was trying to
yeah.
track them down, but
Yeah. The A16 book just went out of print. And I wish, we could still get it. It just kind of ran. It came out in 2008. And so all
see
the
if I can
Tansy
find it on
Press.
eBay.
I mean, maybe, I don't, there's like things that we were thinking, I don't know, we'll see. And then, so the first two books were restaurant books, half wine, half food.
Mm-hmm.
So we opened SPQR in 2007, and then I was a part of it till, we like found it, named it, like built it, and it's like 2019 to the end, divested, and so it's just A16 now. But SPQR is still open, and I'm sure it's doing great.
Yeah, and they opened that little Wine by the Glass bar around the corner. I was spacing on the name. I can't remember. Anyways, so
Yeah.
A16 was the first book.
A16 is the first book, the SPQR was the second.
Oh, okay.
So A16 did have like south of Italy and some central. It's like our fictitious boundaries that were like, well, like if it uses olive oil, like Abruzzo is down. If it uses dairy, that's north,
That's funny.
But of course there's olive oil everywhere. But like that's, that was just how we like made sense of it. And so there was always half wine, half food. And then SPQR did the other. And then so because it's so small at SPQR, there's 15 tables, the wine lists that we had there followed the Roman roads. And that was super fun because we could cover more than one region with a road. And so, it was too small to be like 20 regions. And but it technically covered Italy. And so it would be like via Salaria, via Appia, and take you to different parts. Because, the Rome, you sort of radiated from the center of Rome. And that was like just the history and love of it has Kate and I love. And we did with the Italian wine book. So we had all this research. We've been driving up and down Italy, like all seasons and random places and beautiful places. And we have so many funny stories that like we could finish them together if she was here. But so then we did, then Tansy actually asked us if we would do this book, and we were super excited. So it took a while to figure out how we're going to lay it out and everything. But we also wanted to write a book about Italian wine that made Italian wine regionally understandable, and talk about history, talk about grapes. But you have people like Ian D'Agata writing the encyclopedias, and now there's more access to Italian wine knowledge. But we, have spent a fair amount of time focus on these. So it's a book you could use for like a reference book.
Yeah.
The first part tells you about basically the overview of Italy and how Italian wine came to be, how to read wine labels, some of the laws. But we decided to use the number of words that were sort of allocated. They ended up giving us like 30,000 more words. But just to tell the story. And we wanted it to be more timeless. So we didn't dive into vintages and things like that, because also we know online like things are changing, but we wanted to give something more that you could have and refer to that's not going to be like information that changed too.
Yeah.
So
you don't have to update it every
there was
year,
plenty,
2 years when the laws change.
There's no shortage of things to discuss on Italian wine. So we wanted it to just be something that gave each region some like equal opportunity in a way.
Right.
Whether you're talking about Molise and Val d'Aosta, Piedmont, Tuscany. And I really thought Tuscany was going to be the hardest region to write about. I was wrong. Super fun. It was great. And I left it to the last because I was like, I'm just going to leave that one. I'll tackle it later. But, when you're talking about regions like Friuli, you're talking about borders and wars, and there's like real hardships that have happened in places, and it's affected wine and the culture of wine and how things survived, and today's a new refresh on it, but there is things that generations make sure you don't forget.
Right.
So
I love the book. I mean, I've read it through once, and then now I still go back and use it as a reference
good.
because
Thank you.
I read it through once, and I sat and I like tried to absorb all of the information, and you definitely can't, right? Like it's not this long kind of meandering structure where you could just read 20 pages on one region. It feels consolidated, and it feels like tight. It's enough information without being overwhelming. But yeah, I mean, I was like, I'll read it through. I'll remember, a third of the stuff, and then I'll read it a couple more times. And I'm just like, now I like anytime I have a question or I'm like writing about a region, I immediately consult this, and I consult the wine atlas right underneath, which does a great job. Doesn't check all the same boxes that yours does, but they're covering everything in the world. So I guess it'd be a little harder.
Well, and towards the back, we did put a reference page with like, hey, if you're looking for this, go here, because we wanted to have a page about food
Right.
in regions.
Yeah.
And that was important to us because, like we can't talk about wine without food. So we just gave some regional dishes that you could do, but we didn't add recipes to this book. It was all a wine book.
Right.
And and then we said, hey, if you're a sommelier taking exams, memorizing things.
Right.
We've been there. We know this one.
Yeah.
But we put notes on websites, on places to go and explore different areas further. We just wanted to give like as thorough as we could with the amount of pages and time and so we hope people enjoy it. That's all.
No, I'm really loving it. Actually, Sarah Floyd bought this for us when we came in. Actually,
Sarah,
she bought it for Bianca, but I wanted it. I was gonna buy my own. Sarah said, "I'll buy it for you guys." So it's very
Thank
sweet
you.
of her. You're welcome.
Sarah and I lived in North Beach together, and I remember when she was studying for her master sommelier. I remember when she worked at Moose's. I was at Fleur de Lis. And, we would run into each other at Cafe Roma, hang out. We were always dear, dear friends. And I love her like a sister. Yeah, it's great.
I want to, before we dive into the wine, the wines are not always blindable. They're not even meant to be blindable. It was tough, right? We've had on before you, we had Morgan Harris on, and the question was like, what do we pour for a master somm? And then we were having you on and we're like, oh God, what do we pour for Shelley? Right. So, this is more just kind of something to enjoy while we converse a little bit more. And to kind of take away the wine has to be blinded. It's more like, do you enjoy the wine? It's good. Yeah, I like it. So that's kind of the purpose here. So to touch back on the book, I have found a little challenging. I got into the Calabrian section and I was really into it because we carry Ippolito 1845.
I love them.
And I'm a huge fan of the wines. And I went to Flatiron, and Floribeth has an incredible collection of Italian wines, but within reason, because obviously the general consumer is going to come in and buy Barolos, Barbarescos, Brunellos. So obviously those need to be kind of the star. And I went in the Calabrian sections, 4 or 5 wines, and it's the other Ippolito. I'm forgetting the name, the cousin.
Are you talking about the Ducropio?
Yeah, Ducropio.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And aside from that, I don't ever see these wines in stores. Is there... If somebody wanted to learn more about a wine region, mainly Italy, let's say, and you're thinking Val d'Aosta, or you're thinking Liguria, or you're thinking Calabria, some of the areas that produce maybe not less wine, but produce wine that's maybe not as popular here, Is there kind of, you think, just wine.com or just Total Wine, or is there, where would you recommend people kind of turn to find these wines a little bit more? Aside from A16, obviously.
I was like, we fortunately we have some really great local wine shops here that if you're going to Flatiron, if you're going to Beyond a Vino or Ferry Plaza,
Right.
or you're going to Paul Marcus in the East Bay,
yeah.
or there's just so many. Plum Jack has a good one here. There's there's so many. But I have been in other cities where I was doing a class or something, and I'll be like, oh, I'll just go to the wine shop and get some Italian wine. And I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
There was some challenges, but we made it work, and then it's like I forget because I get lost in my little world of we're used to small producers, and then when sometimes I think about how small these producers are, and we pour them by the glass, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go with this.
Right.
And 20 years later, we're still like, even if sometimes I'm allocated Cesanese and allocated for Pato, I'm like, it's okay because there's some people have helped raise up some grapes like for Pato or Cesanese, and there's other options, and you keep discovering and learning and seeing people that are entering the market that are great, and then you have people are great quality. But like everything, food and wine, there is a option of diluted flavors and that brands selling on brands and not really focus on the quality, and vice versa. Sometimes these old school brands that have like amazing quality, probably like that Celiche Salentino you had in Palm Springs, and you're just like, this over delivers.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, and that's just a cultural like beauty of Italy. You're probably like, and it's 15 years old and it's a new release, and there's places where this is normal and that's just the way it is. But sometimes you can, like, let's take Chianti for example. One of the reasons we went to South Italy is there were these beautiful grapes that weren't perfect with our food and not being highlighted and sound like you're speaking another language when you're recommending them. And so one of the things about Chianti is it's having a great moment right now, Chianti Classico, but it's a very wide market. So there was a time you could go into any, deli and be like, I can get a Chianti for $1.99. Same with Rioja. Same with whatever.
Right,
You're just
yeah.
like, wine is so much part of these cultures that they're used to it being, all the Italians that work with us, when they go to Italy and they go dine at a restaurant, they're like, this is so great. I'm drinking amazing wines, but even the prices are going up in Italy too,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
I really believe it, and I saw it. But I mean, what Etna Rosso is today, and what so many things that if you kind of like knew then what you know now, or who would have predicted that would have happened?
No way.
No, you can't.
Not me.
But yeah, it would be really awesome if some of these like more corporate wine settings had focus on some like how's being farmed, or like help the cause,
Right.
because there is people who are like, wow, there's so much wine, like, or people drinking wine, and I'm like, everyone I know is drinking wine.
Yeah, yeah.
But maybe you take time off, or I see a lot of younger generation drinking wine personally, but wine's sort of a thing we do. So we we only know what we're selling and offering. But yeah, it would be great if there was value and quality. And Italy is one of these places that you can still find a lot of quality and value.
Certainly.
And that was one of the things we were with Napa, with what we want to open. Well, what we're opening next week is we want it to be easy and fun. And people, like, if you're going to Napa wine tasting, yes, there are some very like exclusive, exquisite opportunities and experiences, but it should be a place where people can explore wine, learn wine, drink wine, and not feel intimidated or that it's just, too expensive.
Right.
And because wine, it should be something that we all enjoy. And so it is out there. Like, a little knowledge can save you money,
Right.
because studying wine is like, I find it very rewarding and fun, and I'm always going to be a student too. But I think going to a wine shop or experiencing what they want to sell you is part of a great joy of hospitality.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you kind of circled around something that I was going to talk about, and that was kind of this concern that the younger generations aren't drinking as much and wine drinking trends are down. It's good to hear that, you still feel like the majority of the clientele that come into the restaurant are drinking. And I think, to me, I've always considered the downward trend of wine sales to be like a multifold problem that we're having. It's an election year that always impacts things negatively. Wine is becoming more expensive, lots of fire vintages, there's a lot of things that kind of go into it. But I think one of the things that you guys have done really well, that I think is something that's maybe lost in other settings, is you've kind of taken the stuffiness out of wine, right?
Oh, good. I'm glad you said that.
You have this list that's like really, like the geekiest of geeky som could go in there and like just nerd out on the program forever. I've done it. I go in and Bianca, let's grab a glass of wine at the bar. I say, sure. And then I look at the list and I don't talk to her at all for 15 minutes. I'm just looking at the program. But it's not pretentious. It's not over the top. And I think that that's really beautiful, because I think that that's something that, in my youth, was something that pushed me away from wine for a long time, because wine seemed to be this kind of, not necessarily elitist, but this like upper class kind of thing. And I think that's what it's often been in America. But, I think in Italy and in many other countries, wine is just part of day-to-day life. And I think there's a little bit more kind of like appreciation and respect for it. And also, again, kind of that lack of stuffiness. It's silly that, as a som, I could take a wine from Massimo and I could, he worked hard, he made the wine, and his farmers produced the grapes, and I put on a tie and I can walk up to a table and, make them feel like shit for not knowing some esoteric grape from Campania, right? But that happens in some settings, not all settings, but I'm happy to hear that people are still drinking an A16, because it's wine and food. Like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, making it easy, but also it's, for me and a lot of us who've worked together for a long time at the restaurant, it's kind of through osmosis. Like, even if you came in and you're like, I have a lot to learn on these wines, just from working with us and together, we're very, we're like, you'll get it. Don't worry. Just ask me a question. And then they might not even realize how much they've learned. And you're like, you know all these wines, and they just need to realize to have the confidence in it and trust their palates, and keep learning the stories and things. But it should be like, our job is to understand what we have on the list and what you feel like having when you're walking in the door. And we're like, you said Pinot, and I'm taking you, yes, we have Pinot, but I'm taking you to other places that if you like Pinot, you're going to love these wines. Yeah. And if you don't, it's okay. Like, but usually it's like we're listening to what they're looking for, and we think that they'll love, certain things. So, like, like Brunello and Barolo as, world-class famous wines, beautiful for a reason. And there's so many comparable styles and grapes, and those are becoming popular, and I'm so happy to see it. But also Barolo, I mean, it's a nice time to drink Italian wine for sure, and wine in general, but I think it's a consumer's market, so you can really find some great things out there currently, and wine's sort of like one of these things that, like during COVID when we didn't really have full lists we could hand out, we picked things, we sort of cherry picked and had these random lists, and then we were starting to put lists back together. I was like, I wonder how this 2016 Fiano Manutolo is going to be tasting from Puglia, and I open it at, with a, having a winemaker dinner, like, let's try this one. And it is totally fresh,
Singing.
amazing, like Italian whites. I mean, not all, but so many age just as well as the reds.
Yeah.
And like we had to keep like, actually, I saw Bobby Secchi last week. He was here for the French Laundry anniversary, and we had this conversation because they opened Frosty the same year we opened A16. So we're gonna, we have some things planned together and stuff, but we're like kind of parallel in the, like, our timing of focusing and going different directions. Yeah. And we were having a good laugh about all this just last week, where we're like, Italian whites aging great, and the work we want to do in hospitality, or how we really love it, we're like, it's what we know and love, and want to keep sharing that.
Yeah, I'm falling even more in love with Italian whites the more I have them. And, I think, to me, when I was early on in my wine drinking career, or wine selling career too, they seem to be very similar. While I was having, a lot of Northern Italian whites like Gavi and Pinot Grigio and Freeland Sauvignon, right? And I'm like, okay, they're all kind of like high acid, like high minerality. That's fun. But then, exploring the Southern Italian grapes has been really fascinating. Discovering Trebbiano and discovering Verdicchio and discovering, Verdecca from Lavelli, and, having all these great wines is just so cool. It's really fascinating to be able to taste them all. And again, it's like you mentioned earlier, it's still an incredible value for your dollar. I took out a bottle of Pezzo Morgana from Lavelli the other day, and it's so Salice Salentino Reserva that would retail at, $25 or $30 a bottle. And where else are you getting Reserva quality?
It is so good, that wine.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And
the Favos are just the best.
Yeah.
I love them.
Yeah. I guess, so we're getting to the point where we should probably wrap. Thank you for coming again. I know you've been working all day, and now you're here doing the podcast. So a couple quick questions. The first is, and you've kind of touched on this, but if you could kind of summarize in a couple sentences what hospitality means to you, how would you distill that?
Oh, I love that question. So complex too. It's like, really, I can't tell you enough how hospitality is really what it's all about. It is just the intention of service, and it also working with others, for others. It's, we're really nurturing people, and also very community focused. So for hospitality, I think it's obviously all about people, but it's it needs to be something that you love to do, because if restaurants is something that I think the American culture could do a really great job of understanding that service is very important in culture, in our own daily existence in life. And hospitality, it could be a restaurant, but it could also be where you get your coffee in the morning, the people you see passing by, how we are with one another in our community, and like just being aware of surroundings. And you know, it's, I think hospitality is a very humble way to be, but I think that, you know, in whether you're talking about religion, politics, so many different things, it's like kindness is a virtue. It's not a negative. This is, you know, taking care of people is a gift.
Right.
And, you know, it is work, and you have to be a little bit dogmatic about it sometimes, but that's only because we want the best for everyone, everyone included. The better we're working as a team, the better the service will be. But I just really feel that hospitality needs, hopefully, to be respected from a sense of career and like profession, because it's sometimes people feel like they should be doing other things.
Sure.
They're not valued, or they're adding, but I feel like this is like our culture could do better on putting back in, like, yes, we all need to survive, exist, and why does it look like, you know, especially probably in social media days, it's like, looks like that's so easy, or you know, or like people are sometimes surprised to see me on the floor, or you know, loving what I do, and I'm like, but this is what I do.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like, I like, even like, it's sometimes when we're, you know, fully staffed, or it's different things are happening in a week, and I'm like, I really should be spending time here, but I would like to be on the floor, but then something else isn't being done, and then, you know, so I'm trying to prioritize my you know, I think I'm reprioritizing like every 15 minutes.
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, that's almost what the restaurant industry is always, right? You're, okay, I got 2 more tables. I got to go greet them. This person needs this. That person needs this. I'm going to get those things done first, and then I'm going to go to those people. Yeah. It's, I mean, sounds like hospitality through and through.
Yeah. I feel lucky. It sort of brought me up, and, you know, been treated like family for so many years, and hopefully people feel that way working with us, and, you know, different extensions through different areas, for better or worse. We really, you know, care and do our best.
Yeah.
So
It shows. I think it shows through in your work. And do you enjoy the wine?
this is great.
Yeah. This was the question. What do we pour for Shelley? So we actually called in a little help. We
Really?
I called Stefano, and I said,
Cookie, Stevie Cookie.
I called him. I said, Stefano, what should I pour for Shelley? Like, she's probably had every Italian wine you could imagine. You know, like, I don't know. What do you think? And he said, well, you know, Tansy, it's a cool climate wines. Like, you could focus on a cool climate domestic wine. Or what could be really fascinating, we didn't have a lot of this. We drove to the Presidio today to go to our little bunker. And we were, like, looking for wine. And
No way.
and he said, you know, maybe a new school Spanish wine. And we were just like, we don't have anything. And we stopped by a couple shops on the way to get the baby from daycare. And then I said, well, you know what I have at home? It's not Spanish, but it's Portuguese. So it's... What do you pour for somebody that's had all the Italian wines under the sun? You pour them something from Portugal. So this is
so cool.
Yeah, Luis Chebra, Seabra, I guess, is kind of the new wave of Portuguese wine production. He's based in the Douro, and then he makes these 2 wines, Xisto Limonitato Branco and Tinto, which are kind of field blends. and then he makes this series called Mono, where he focuses on a single variety. So Castelao is the variety, 100%.
I love this.
Yeah,
This is awesome.
It's brand new to our portfolio, and
It's great.
I think it's fun.
The tannins you feel them, and then the acid's so vibrant and beautiful. I really loved it.
I'll scoot it over. I don't want to block the book. And then the book, aside from being able to purchase it in A16, is available on Amazon. Is there a digital version?
Yes, in fact, the Audible, we're like obsessed with her. Her name is Carlota, and she speaks perfect Italian and perfect English. So like she's telling this story, and then she comes around to like an Italian word, and she's like mozzarella, or like you're like I was in Tuscany, and the Chianti, like everything's so good.
Awesome.
I'm just like I love you. I'm so happy that she did the Audible, and then I had a few friends that were like driving around Italy and listening, and they kind of got where we were going with this because they're like, I'm in this area and I'm really understanding what it's like to be in Abruzzo today, or
Right.
Friuli or La Marche, and through this restaurant path, I've been hopping over there more than I would have ever thought when I was young. I didn't really travel as much.
Right.
Especially I went to Europe when I was 17 and spent the summer in Aix-en-Provence. There was a sister high school from where we lived that brother and sister lived with us, and it was awesome. But I, staying with the family, and they became like family to us too, and never would have known outside of my 16 years of Catholic school how much Italian
Right.
history I would know.
Yeah, that's funny.
Like,
That's funny.
yeah.
Great. Well, any closing words, any words of wisdom, any gem you'd like to leave the listeners with? I think we have 50 listeners, so whatever, 50 listeners.
Well, I mean, 50 is amazing.
That's a good start. Yeah.
No, it's awesome. And it's just fun to be sitting and talking about wine and food. And, always, there's never a bad question, never a bad idea. I mean, maybe there's sometimes bad ideas, but I mean, just follow your love and passion. And, I try to do that. It's really like day to day sometimes because you have to, it's a whole new day in the restaurant world. But you also, I'm really excited for this next year, next decade coming up. I feel like we have a chance and opportunity to reset some things in our industry, and I feel like it's a good time to be in it myself. So,
Awesome. Well, let's make it better together.
Cheers. Let's do it.
Cheers.
Got it.